What's up, guys? It's Natasha Varela, the Money Nista, 20 years in audit, accounting, and tax, 13 in the large business and international division of the Internal Revenue Service, real estate investor, business owner. I call myself the accidental investor. So I'm going to talk about my foundation, which is audit. Okay. In audit, what we try to essentially do is identify areas of weakness and remediate those areas of weakness, and then test said remediation procedures to make sure the area of weakness no longer exists or the risk is as minimized as possible. Now, we know we can't reduce risk to zero in any way, shape, or form, but we can get it as close to zero as possible. So I kind of implement that in my business, in my real estate ventures, and throughout life, right? I'm very, we have what we call preventative measures and detective measures. Preventative measures catch things before they happen. Detective measures catch things after they happen, but at least they catch them, right? So that you can kind of, you can kind of rectify it. So an example of something that's preventative is, locking your credit report. So nobody can open up any new accounts under your social security number, right? It's caught. Like you'll get an email, somebody tried to do X, Y, and Z, somebody tried to pull your credit, and it won't allow it to go through, right? That's preventative. Okay. Detective is something like credit monitoring, right? When somebody does something, you get an alert, right? If your credit report is unlocked and it's like, hey, so-and-so bank or lender or whatever have you, pulled your credit. You have an inquiry. So that kind of happens after the fact, right? After the credit has been pulled. And so I try to, implement preventative procedures throughout every area I can, because I want to reduce my risk to as close to zero as possible. Okay. So with real estate, I am a landlord. I went from one unwarrantable condo, which used to be my primary residence, to about 7 cash flowing properties. And it's a risk, right? Your tenants may not pay you rent. They may not pay you on time, things of that nature. So one of the preventative measures is instituted through your lending institution, which is usually having to have reserves, right? So I have reserves. I have all the reserves required by the lender before I close. And I make sure that, any part of my rent that I collect that is, in excess of the expenses, which is my cash flow, I put a percentage away for things like vacancies, repairs, things of that nature, and or legal actions or whatever have you. But I found a way to actually reduce my risk of non-payment. So in 2020, about the start of the pandemic, I had renters come into my condo. They were international students, and they were having an issue getting approved for an apartment, right? Because they were international students, they were on a visa. And so they said, well, we have guarantor insurance, right? And I didn't know what it was. So I said, okay, put in your application. And I talked to, at the time I had a doorman who was also Asian. They were Asian students. And I asked them, have you ever heard of this? And he says, yeah, sure. This is common. It's just a company that, assures that the students that, they don't skip out on rent, because you can't go get your rent once they're in their own country, right? There's nothing you can do. And so I did some research on the internet, and I found the company, and I did some research, and I accepted them. They paid their rent on time. And then mid-pandemic, I want to say their lease started in March 1st and it ended May 31st of the following year, of 2021. And they ended up leaving in September because, there was no in-person classes due to social distancing rules that were being put into place by restaurants, schools, things of that nature. And of course, that made their visa invalid. And so they had to leave. I ended up putting in a claim, and the insurance company gave me all the rent every month that I put in a claim, because you have to have the possession of the unit in order to get your money back. And I got my money back every single time, right? Every month until the lease was up. And luckily by that following June, I had a tenant, so there was no lapse in payment. And I required my tenants to have the same insurance. Now, this is not only for international students. This is for anybody, business owners, regular people, regular working people, any person, right? Students, whatever have you. It is a third-party insurance company. It has nothing to do with your homeowner's insurance, nothing to do with the premium. I make my tenants apply through my landlord portal. It's free to me as a landlord. It's free to use a landlord. You create your account. You register your property for free, or properties. Okay. And I invite potential applicants who are interested in my units to apply through my insurance company. And they do the income verification, they do the credit check, they do all of that for me. If they don't want to go through that process, then they're not my tenant, period. I require it. Right. And so in lieu of giving me security deposit, I include security deposit replacement coverage in my lease protection plan. Right. That allows you to customize your coverage. I usually cover the whole lease. And once they apply and they are approved, because it's free to apply, they have to pay the fee. Right. So instead of security, they have to pay the fee to the insurance company. And a security deposit, our replacement is included in the fee. And so once they are approved and they pay, I get the lease bond, and then I issue the lease and we sign and we move forward. They get the keys. And so if they ever were to stop paying rent, whether they leave voluntarily or they must be evicted, I will get any rent left that's due on a lease and any rent that is owed to me, okay, from non-payment. And I did have to evict one person for the first time ever, early November of last year. And I got the rent, right? I put in a claim, I got the rent. And so I never really missed out on a rent payment. And not only that, I get a really good inventory of tenants, right? I attract a really good quality of tenants. I don't just take any tenant. Sometimes a bad tenant is worse than no tenant because they cost more than just not renting the unit. So that's a little tidbit for you guys. If you want to learn more, I teach all of this in the Tax Strategies Mastermind. I'll put the link in the description box below. I probably have about $500,000 in coverage for my tenants. You do have to gain possession again. You have to evict them or they have to leave voluntarily. Before you put in a claim and receive any funds, it's usually within 3 to 5 business days. It's an awesome product. It weeds out unscrupulous people and it opens the door to people who can pay the rent, but they otherwise wouldn't be approved. Maybe they have a lot of income. They just don't have the best credit history or any credit history, or maybe they have great credit, but their income is seasonal up and down, but they can't afford it. And it kind of holds everybody accountable, right? They know that, as a landlord, you don't have to go to court to get your money. You just have to go to court to evict them. And then the insurance company will recoup their funds from them because an insurance company has more reach than the average landlord, right? The average small mom and pop landlord who really doesn't have time, right? Most landlords, once they get the unit back, they're just focused on turning the unit over. So that's a good measure, a preventative measure to make sure you always get your money, have your reserves on deck because you might have to pay the mortgage while you evict a tenant or whatever have you. And of course, if there's damages, you have your homeowner's insurance. But people who are on the hook in the insurance way are usually not going to be malicious in that way. Okay. I know with the eviction moratorium, people took advantage. I got my money all throughout the eviction moratorium because all my tenants are required to have lease protection insurance. I require them before they move in, and they're required to have renter insurance. So for damages to the personal property. So again, I'm very preventative. I don't leave any door open for calamity. All right. So I hope to see you guys in the Tax Strategies Mastermind. Let's get to it. It's going to be a great year. I want you guys to flourish. I want you guys to protect yourself. I don't want you to become, disgruntled landlords and disgruntled business owners and, mad at things that could have been prevented. All right. So I'm signing off. Yours truly, former revenue agent, current enrolled agent. Decades in audit, accounting, and tax, and business owner. All right. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.